What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Season of the Deep has introduced a lot of changes to build crafting in Destiny 2 Lightfall. Some for the good, some for the bad. But one build that has benefited the most, in my opinion, is a build that was already insanely overpowered. A build that is perfect for dishing out an incredible amount of damage against raid and dungeon bosses, Nightfall bosses, Lost Sector bosses, Lucent Hive, and champions galore. No enemy can withstand the onslaught that can be unleashed with the Arcstrider Hunter using Gathering Storm and the Star Eater scales. And now in Season of the Deep, we have a ton of new artifact mods, changes to class trees, and new weapons that have really propelled this Arcstrider build into being my go-to hunter build for in-game content, as it's one of the highest DPS builds currently in the game. The Star Eater scales comes with Feast of Light, which grants bonus super energy when collecting orbs. When at full charge, this grants health recovery and a 100 health point overshield when casting your super. But the most valued benefit of Star Eaters is that when you collect orbs, when your super is fully charged, you get a bonus towards super damage. This grants 27.3% bonus damage for 1 stack of Feast of Light, 54.6% bonus for 2 stacks, a 62.3% boost for 3 stacks, and a 70% increase for 4 stacks. This damage bonus can be applied to the impact of the Gathering Storm staff, making this super just as lethal as Blade Barrage. But now that the Thunderous Retort artifact mod is available, you'll get an additional 15% damage that gets added on to that initial impact of Gathering Storm, while other supers will receive a 30% increase in damage when using Thunderous Retort. The Thunder Crash and Gathering Storm supers are reduced down to 15%. Thunderous Retort alone does not define this build. There are 4 other new artifact mods that have a significant impact towards your ability to survive and deal out additional damage. Electric Armor boosts your amplified time up to 20 seconds, and synergizing off of this, Amped Up provides a 30% increase in your resistance while you are amplified. And to bring further harmony to this collaboration, Shock and Awe will cause Arc Final Blows to emit a blast that jolts targets and stuns overload champions. Add in Lightning Strikes twice, and you'll receive an increase in grenade energy after throwing a grenade, and Grenade Final Blows will extend this benefit. While this build isn't necessarily set up for mass grenade use, it is an extremely nice complement to have. There's other beneficial mods that the seasonal artifact offers that will make it easier to set up the needed armor mods for this build. Arc Authorization will reduce the cost of Arc associated mods down to 1 energy, and Melee Authorization will reduce melee mods down to 1 energy, with the exception of Font of Vigor. This will become especially beneficial since this build does focus heavily around the synergy between our melee and class ability. We're using the flow state aspect, which causes us to become amplified when defeating a jolted target. While amplified, we receive a 200% increase in class ability regeneration, a 50-point increase to weapon reload speed, and additional damage resistance when performing a dodge. We're also using Lethal Current. After dodging, our next melee attack will jolt a target and causes an aftershock that deals out area damage to all enemies within 6 meters. Targets who are jolted will become blinded when hit with a melee attack, which can also stun unstoppable champions. We're pairing this up with Combination Blow. After a charged melee kill, this grants a 20% bonus to damage, healing, and class ability energy per stack of Combination Blow. This maxes out at 3 stacks, granting a total of 60% increased melee damage, healing, and class ability energy. Since the combination of Flow State, Lethal Current, and Combination Blow will keep our melee and class ability charged, we can utilize Marksman Dodge to grant automatic reloading of all of our weapons when dodges are performed. When it comes to fragments, we're utilizing Spark of Amplitude, which grants orbs of power when rapidly defeating enemies while we are amplified. Spark of Resistance is going to grant 10 extra points towards strength, and it's going to provide a 25% increase in damage resistance when 3 or more enemies are within 15 meters. This gets stacked on top of the resistance bonus that we are receiving from Amped Up, granting us a total of 55% additional resistance that's going to be active as long as you're in combat. With Spark of Recharge, we'll get 400% bonus grenade energy and melee energy whenever we become critically wounded. And with Spark of Feedback, we'll get 10 extra points added to Resilience, along with an extra 75% melee damage that gets stacked on for 5 seconds after we've been hit by a melee attack. The synergy that's created between this season's artifact mods and this Arcstrider setup is prolific and absolutely perfect to combine with most any weapon and armor loadout. But there's some options that are just going to fare out much better for you this season. So let's take a look. When it comes to weapon loadouts, the biggest factor is going to be the activity that you're in and what type of bosses that you're going up against. We're set up to be an extremely tanky and aggressive playstyle. So aggressive in-your-face weapons are always going to be preferred. Shotguns with 1-2 punch continue to be the pride and joy for most Arcstrider hunters. But there's also options like the Fourth Horseman that can really eat away at a boss's health, or the Witherhorde that can deal out damage over time. Swords also make a fantastic choice when you're running aggressive playstyles, so the Lament would be a great option. Since we'll spend most of our time slapping enemies around, it can be more opportunistic to run double special weapons with this build, which is a great way to increase your overall damage output, especially when you're looking at double or triple shotgun loadouts. And with shotguns at mind, the Tractor Cannon can offer a great benefit by debuffing your enemies for 10 seconds, which grants you an additional 30% damage during that time frame. So far this season, we've seen the Apex Predator, the Briar's Contempt Linear Fusion Rifle, and the Cold Comfort Stasis Rocket Launcher all emerge as predominant DPS weapons against many of the bosses this season. And all of these will serve as fantastic options towards your choice in heavy. The combination of Envious Assassin and Explosive Light are the preferred god rolls for Apex Predator and Cold Comfort. Alternatively, the Anarchy, the Sleeper Simulant, the Legend of Acrius, and the Grand Overture can all be amazing exotic options relative to what type of boss and champions you're going up against. When it comes to armor, starting with helmets, we're going with Hands On, which is reduced down to just 1 energy. This makes it far more beneficial to run 2 hands-on mods to increase the amount of super energy that's returned after melee final blows. If you have extra energy to spare, Dynamo is still going to be a great option to get bonus super energy after dodging near enemies. Since we'll be performing a lot of both of these, either mod will be beneficial. Using a Siphon mod that matches your weapon choice will provide additional orbs off of weapon kills. And when we look at glove mods, we're using Heavy Handed, which is going to generate orbs when defeating enemies with melee final blows. Since this gets reduced down to 1 energy, we can get away with using 2, which is going to increase how often these get generated. This in turn frees us up to use Shield Break Charge, which is going to grant 1 stack of armor charge every time we break a combatant shield with a matching energy type. With the mass amount of orbs that this build generates, we can afford to utilize weapon surge mods, while also using mods that will deplete our armor charge stacks. With that being the case, we are using stacks on stacks and charged up so that we have additional armor charge slots available and gain additional armor charge stacks when collecting orbs. Since my build in particular is already stacked towards resilience, I'm using Emergency Reinforcement, which is going to grant a temporary increase in damage reduction when my shields become broken. This will consume at least 3 armor charges to activate, but with the use of one of these mods, it's an instant 10% reduction in damage, with additional mods elongating this time frame. To add to our survivability, we are also using the Better Already leg mod, which is going to grant 70 points of health after collecting an orb. For class item, we're using the Reaper mod so that an additional orb will get generated when defeating an enemy with a weapon after performing our dodge. We're also using a new legendary mod that's available this season called Powerful Attraction. This causes nearby orbs to travel to you after you perform a dodge. This is very similar to the old Seeking Wells mod. And lastly, we're using Empowered Finish mod. Performing a finisher will grant 1 stack of armor charge. While this was previously just looked at as a DPS build for raids and dungeons, this has quickly become one of the most dominating builds for in-game content. It generates a ton of orbs, provides great survivability, and dishes out an insane amount of damage, giving you a perfect base build to take on any level of content during Season of the Deep. And with that being said, that brings us to an end of today's video. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this Arcstrider build, and if you've given it a try already this season. You can find a link for this build in the description below so that you can set it up for yourself. I wish you all the best of luck throughout this season and throughout the rest of Lightfall. Thank you as always for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.